Hi guys, I'm Anita and I'm back with another video. Today is a first on my channel and this is something I think I will be doing in the future when I finish a series. I want to do a non-spoiler review of the overall series and let you know if I think it's worth your time and all of that. And today, since I recently finished Fire Study, I completed the study trilogy, so today I'll be doing a non-spoiler review of the study trilogy by Marie V. Snyder. The study trilogy follows Yelena, who is basically sentenced to death, and just as she is about to become executed a couple days before, she gets a second chance, if you will, is by being the commander's poison taster or food taster. And obviously this is a very dangerous task because a lot of people always want to kill the king, so she has to taste the food beforehand to check if there's poison in it, and if there is, she knows what sort of antidotes to take so that she won't be killed by the food that she eats. And yeah, this throws her into this whole new world. She meets a lot of new characters and she's set into training to be able to in combat fighting and stuff, and also she finds that she has magic, and in this world magic is very frowned upon. It's very forbidden. If anyone discovers that you are able to use magic, that you will be, it's another death sentence. So she has to hide this from everyone as well, even though it's really difficult to hide that you are able to use this sort of magic. I absolutely adored the first book. It was really gripping, and it was so hard to figure out where this was gonna go. It was very something I hadn't read like that before. Even though I had read some fantasy at the time, I wasn't a very avid fantasy reader at the time. But yeah, Yelena is a really strong character, and she holds she's a very great character through all of the books. And yeah, it's difficult to explain the plot in the next two without spoiling too much that happens in this book. So yeah, so I can only sort of talk about my enjoyment of the other books in comparison to the first. And going into the second book, it didn't pick up right away. I think it picked up pretty close after what happened in the end of Poison Study, but as it's really long time since I read Poison Study, it's difficult to remember how it all ended out. There's only very few characters in the beginning of this book that were also in Poison Study, so this is a lot of new characters we're introduced to in this book. And although I found the new sort of world interesting and it was really gripping, I did miss the characters from the first book because I thought they were a little bit more fleshed out. And yeah, but they did make an appearance in this book, so that made it a lot more interesting. And yeah, so I ended up really enjoying this one as well, and gave this one a 5 out of 5 stars, even though that the new characters maybe weren't as fleshed out as the side characters in the first book. They were still really interesting, the other characters, so it was enough to hold my attention for the whole book. And then going into the last and final book in the series, the pace of this story wasn't as fast as the second one and the first one in particular. It followed the same characters. There were very few new characters introduced in the third book, because it was set in mostly the same setting as the second book. But I did enjoy getting to know more about Yelena and her power, her magical ability, what she could do with it. And there was definitely a lot of times when you were in doubt whether you wanted to trust the persons that are around Yelena or not. You knew you can trust the ones from the first book. You had no doubt about that, but you weren't completely sure about the ones from the next books, and I found that really intriguing. But I will still say probably that the first book in the series is the best one, and then Magic Study is the second best. And I think I ended up giving this a 5 out of 5 stars anyway, but I think it's around maybe 4.75 stars for this one, because there were some moments that were a little slow and a little more difficult to get through. I'm not gonna mention too much about the love interest because I'm afraid it might be spoilerish, but I really enjoyed the couple in this one. It took some time to get used to in the first one, considering things, but I really ship this relationship. I feel like they have a lot of respect for one another. They trust each other on so many levels that it's not even it's crazy. And I really enjoyed that aspect, and every time the love interest made an appearance in the books, in these next books, where he wasn't in it as much as in the first one, he sort of not took over the scene in a bad way, but he just made such a great presence in on the scene, because he was a really interesting character, and he took up so much of your focus. And I found that really interesting, and just the second that he appeared in this book, it made the book a lot more better. I'm not sure exactly what that says, but I just like the dynamics between her and between Yelena and the love interest in the series. Yes, but I ended up giving all of these books 5 out of 5 stars, so it's an overall 5-star trilogy for me, the best YA trilogy I've read so far, and I'm definitely going to read all of Marie V. Snyder's books. I don't know when I'll get into the Glass trilogy, but hopefully it would be sometime during this year. But right now I have a lot of books on my plate because of things, but I will explain that a lot more when I get to my March TBR. But yes, if you have not yet checked out Marie V. Snyder, I will highly suggest you do that if you're into YA fantasy at all. I think she writes really interesting characters, and she writes really interesting plots, and yes, you definitely want to keep on reading. They're really amazing books. So this was all I had for you today. Let me know in the comments down below if you've read the trilogy and what you thought of them. What you thought of the books, if you agree with me on my review. Also, if you're not agreeing with me, please let me know about that. I liked having these discussions, and maybe there's some things that I didn't notice. And if you like this sort of video, also let me know about that, because I think it's something I'll be doing in the future. And yeah, I'd like some feedback on that. So if you like the video, please give it a thumbs up, subscribe to my channel if you haven't already, and I'll see you in my next video very soon. Goodbye.